And, the older that you get, and you and I talk about this, I really miss the thought of having a family. Like that's still in me. That's still in me.
I'm sorry for making me cry.
Did you push record?
Thanks so much for tuning in to our second act with Paige and Silka.
For your second act of life.
Hi, Paige. How are
Hi,
you?
Linda.
I'm so glad you're back today because we are continuing a conversation that's, very, very near and dear to our hearts. And that is the fact that neither one of us had children. Both for very different reasons. I chose not to have children. I made a conscious decision, and I'm very good with that, and that was covered in previous shows, also with one of my very best friends. Look forward to you seeing that. But what also struck me then, Paige, is that we're good with it. Susan and I are good with that decision. But when you can't have children and you want children, that's a whole other thing, and that's what we really want to hone in on today. So what I'd like to ask is that you share your story, because I'm sure a lot of women will identify with it.
Well, Silka, I think this is a good opportunity for me to share because, yes, when you can't have children or the adoption didn't go through, for many of us, it is devastating. And it kind of holds onto you like when you have gum on the bottom of your shoe. You can get a lot of the wad out, but you still have little pieces that are stuck in there. And that's kind of how it feels.
Well, the obvious question, Paige, why could you not have children? And I actually don't know that. You and I have never talked about that reason.
Yeah. Well, it leads to a little bit of a story, not too terribly long, but you get all the tests run as far as how are your eggs, how are this, and I didn't look to start having kids until my late 30s, early 40s. So what happened was, I think a lot of our viewers know that my husband was very sick for many years, and I haven't shared this with you, Silka. So right in the middle of his illness, I'd gone to see a new gynecologist that my good friend who's a doctor referred me to, and halfway through she said, "Paige, do you have children?" And I said, "No, I don't." And she said, "Well, do you know why you don't have children?" And I said, "No." So she explained this situation, why I didn't have children, and in that moment she said to me, if someone had caught this 5 years prior or 6 years prior, you could have had children. And so I just remember that night laying in bed and just crying quietly. So, from that point on, we started to do the adoption process. And another thing that a lot of women go through with adoption, especially the older that you get, is if you look at different countries, they don't look at the man for the adoption if you're a heterosexual couple. They still look at the woman as being the primary caregiver. And if you're at a certain age that the country says, no, you're too old, they don't accept you. Went through that. Even Catholic Charities here in the States had one point said, the social worker had said to me, "Paige, I'm so sorry, but they're going to look at your age and they're going to say you're too old," even though she didn't agree with it. And I said, let me get this straight. So a woman gets older, she has really good health, takes care of herself, is more patient, has more wisdom, has more to give, but no, that won't work. So that was very difficult. And then when I was in Rwanda, helping out with after effects and things from the genocide, I remember going to an orphanage, and my mind was, I was not there to look for children. My mind was there to help people with PTSD. And I remember being in this orphanage, and I walked in, and straight back there was this little boy, and he was about 6 months old. They found him on the side of the road, and he had a distended belly, and he had stuff coming out of his nose, and I just looked at him, and I went, oh my God, that is my son. So I went right back over, picked him up, held him, and we started the process, which, I was so excited about, but like 2 years after that, the country had said, you know what, we're not going to have you adopt him right now, even though all the indications were, yes, you can adopt him, and right now he's 8 years old and my heart is still there in Rwanda with that son. And then we had gone through other times in the Congo, we had gone through times here in the States where we were actually shown pictures of children saying, okay, who do you connect with? And we, really feel it and resonate with it and go, oh, yes, that one, that one. And then the organizations will come back and go, oh, sorry, we've already slotted them for these parents. So it was this emotional up and down roller coaster of, okay, are we going to adopt? Or are we not going to adopt? Okay, they said yes. Okay, now they said no. And, the older that you get, and you and I talk about this, I really miss the thought of having a family. Like that's still in me. That's still in me.
Sorry for making me cry.
That's okay because Silka, like you know me from a bigger perspective. I don't know if that was my journey here because not having kids enables me to reach out and help so many people globally. And all the different things that I'm into, and my hands are into different projects to help, different people in the world. And that's how I kind of look at it. But there's a lot of women or, men out there who they've gone through the same thing and there's still a void. And as you get older, and like you and I talked about this before, how many times people ask you, do you have kids? Or do you have grandkids? And you just think, wow, is the career the only thing to focus on here?
Yeah. How do you fill that void? How do you get over it? Do you get over it?
I've seen different things with my clients. Some of them get over it to a degree, but you always have like this little piece of that tug, that void of, motherhood, wanting to mother. And it's harder when you have friends who have kids or their kids get older and they graduate and now they're doing things in the world. And then you see your friends who are our age and older now having relationships, going places with their adult kids. So you sit there and you always imagine, well, what could that have looked like? But as you and I said before, just because you have kids doesn't mean you'll be close to them either. So every woman and man channels it in a different way. You can volunteer, you can work with children, children type of organizations. You can create a business and birth that business and birth helping others. And for me, I've always birthed helping others. That's been my passion and that's been my purpose here in this world.
What's the biggest piece of advice you can give somebody listening, that is our age now and was unable to have children, longed for it, that's still having trouble coping with it?
I think the big thing is, and you know this about me, Silka, that this is just one lifetime that we live. And we're in this human body, human form, but we're all souls. So it doesn't mean you won't have an opportunity in another lifetime or wherever you go after you transition from this lifetime. So look at it from a bigger sense, because if you hold on to anger, if you hold on to resentment, if you hold on to the deep sadness and you keep identifying with being childless, that will kind of run your life. It's okay if you still have, like I just got choked up because it's still in me. It's still in us when we can't have, children or the adoption didn't go well. But the big thing is find something that you can birth. Find something that you can mother and know that your role in this lifetime has different purposes. And it doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but it means it has a different purpose. And another thing is too, kids show up in very different ways. Whether your friend has a child that maybe doesn't connect with your friend, but they really tend to talk to you, or maybe there's an adult in their 20s, 30s, their parents have transitioned, and maybe they're looking for a mentor and you can connect. So there's so many different ways of what does mothering look like? What does fathering look like? So be open, like I always say, be open to the messages, be open to the different paths, and be open to feeling what you're feeling, but you don't have to hold on to it and say, I'm childless, because there's different ways to mother in the world.
Yeah. And you're not defined, women are not and should not, that word should be defined by not having given birth. As you said, that's birthing, there are so many different things you can birth. You're absolutely right. I love the way you said that, Paige. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing that. I know that we're going to be...
When I cry and tear up, I know you love that.
No, I mean, you feel deeply about that, and that's why I wanted to make sure we talked about this, because there are so many women out there like that, and we will be continuing this conversation. And you're going to take that in studio, and we do
Right.
want everybody's input. If you would like to have input on that show, if you would like to call in, if you have a story you want to share, do leave us a comment below, or contact us privately via email, info@secondact.tv. We'll have that in the video description. And Paige and I look forward to hearing from you. Anything else you want to say?
Note, just remember, and you already said it, there's many different ways to mother and to parent. And this is not the only lifetime that you're going to live.
Thanks, Paige. We'll see you next time on Our Second Act with Paige and Silka.
For your second act of life.
Bye, Paige. See you later.
Bye, Silka.
Bye. Thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate it. If you haven't already done so, please take 1 second and subscribe to our channel. Buttons right here. And if you have a story to share on today's topic, please leave your comments below or contact us via the website, secondact.tv. We hope to see you again soon.